A gunshot cracked through the clear Montana sky as Amelia Baker's heart nearly stopped, her hands trembling against the windowsill of her father's ranch house. The year was 1876, and in just 3 days, she would be married to Gerald Thompson, the wealthiest cattle baron in the territory, a man she'd never loved and never would. "Amelia, come away from that window," her mother scolded, bustling into the room with pins in her mouth and wedding fabric draped over her arm. "Your dress fitting cannot wait another minute." Amelia turned reluctantly from the window, where in the distance she could see a lone rider disappearing into the hills. She knew who it was without needing to see his face. Samuel Kane, the man who had stolen her heart last summer when he'd come to work as a ranch hand for her father. "I don't need another fitting, Mother," she said quietly, but allowed herself to be guided to the center of the room. "Nonsense. Everything must be perfect for your wedding to Mr. Thompson." Her mother's voice held a note of pride that made Amelia's stomach turn. "Your father worked very hard to arrange this match. Gerald is a fine man with means to support you properly. Means to support her father's failing ranch, more like it." At 22, Amelia understood all too well what this marriage truly was: a business transaction with her as the commodity. As her mother pinned and fussed over the elaborate gown, Amelia's mind wandered to Samuel. Tall and strong, with eyes the color of a summer storm and hands that could break a wild horse or touch her cheek with equal gentleness. They had fallen in love in secret, stealing moments together whenever possible. But when her father announced her betrothal to Thompson 3 months ago, Samuel had disappeared without a word. "Until yesterday. I saw him again," Amelia said suddenly. Her mother's hand stilled. "Who?" "Samuel Kane." The pins clattered to the floor. "Amelia Baker. You will not speak that name in this house again. That drifter is nothing but trouble, and your father made it clear he's not welcome here." "He's not a drifter," Amelia protested. "He owns land now, a small spread just beyond the ridge." "He came to tell me." "I don't care what he came to tell you," her mother interrupted sharply. "You are promised to Gerald Thompson, and in 3 days, you will be his wife. Your father's debts will be paid, and this family will be saved from ruin. Do you understand what's at stake?" Amelia nodded, her throat tight. "Yes, Mother." But what her mother didn't know was that Samuel had returned with more than just news of his land purchase. He'd come with a plan and a promise. "I'll come for you, Amelia. When the time is right, I'll come for you." That night, Amelia lay awake in her bed, listening to the sounds of the Montana wilderness through her open window. The wedding preparations had consumed the entire household, with guests already arriving from as far as Denver to witness the union of the Baker and Thompson families. A soft tapping at her window startled her from her thoughts. She rose quickly, her nightgown billowing around her as she rushed to see Samuel perched precariously on the oak branch outside. "Samuel," she whispered, sliding the window fully open. "Are you mad? My father will shoot you if he finds you here." His smile flashed white in the darkness. "Then I better not get caught." He swung himself gracefully into her room, landing with barely a sound on the wooden floor. At 25, Samuel moved with the quiet confidence of a man who had spent his life navigating danger. "You shouldn't be here," she said, even as she fell willingly into his embrace. His arms tightened around her. "I had to see you. 3 days, Amelia. That's all we have left." She pulled back to look into his face, the moonlight casting shadows across his features. "What can we possibly do? My father has guards posted. The entire territory knows about this wedding." Samuel took her hands in his. "Run away with me. Tonight." Amelia's heart leapt, but reality quickly dampened her hope. "They would find us. My father would never stop looking, and Thompson has men all over the territory. Then we'll go farther. California, maybe, or up to Canada." She shook her head sadly. "And live as fugitives? Always looking over our shoulders? What kind of life would that be?" Samuel's jaw tightened. "Better than the life you'll have with Thompson. I've heard things, Amelia. He's not the gentleman your father thinks he is. The way he treats his ranch hands, the stories about his first wife." "First wife?" Amelia felt a chill. "I was told he's never been married. There's a lot your father doesn't know," Samuel said grimly. "Or chooses not to see." A floorboard creaked in the hallway outside her room, and they both froze. After a moment of tense silence, footsteps moved away. "You have to go." Amelia whispered urgently. Samuel cupped her face in his hands. I won't give you up without a fight, Amelia Baker. I love you too much for that. I love you too, she said, the words catching in her throat. But I don't see how. He silenced her with a kiss, fierce and desperate. Trust me, he whispered against her lips. Just be ready. Before she could ask what he meant, he was gone, slipping out the window and disappearing into the night like a ghost. The next morning brought increased activity to the Baker Ranch. Wagons arrived bearing flowers, food, and decorations for the wedding. Amelia moved through it all in a daze, her mind still reeling from Samuel's midnight visit. There you are. Gerald Thompson's booming voice startled her as she crossed the yard. The cattle baron strode toward her, his expensive boots kicking up dust. At 45, Thompson was more than twice Amelia's age, his once handsome face now weathered and hard, with small eyes that never seemed to smile even when his mouth did. Mr. Thompson, she greeted stiffly, forcing herself to stand still as he approached. Now, what's this Mr. Thompson business? We're to be married in 2 days, Amelia. I think you can call me Gerald. He took her hand, his grip uncomfortably tight. Of course, Gerald. The name felt wrong on her tongue. He smiled, revealing teeth stained by tobacco. That's better. I've brought you something. He reached into his coat pocket and withdrew a small box. Inside was a ruby pendant on a gold chain, ostentatious and gaudy. It's beautiful, she lied, allowing him to fasten it around her neck. The weight of it felt like a collar. Red suits you, he said, his eyes lingering on her throat in a way that made her skin crawl. I expect you to wear it at the wedding. Yes, Gerald. He nodded approvingly. Good girl. I think we'll get along just fine once you understand how things work between a husband and wife. His tone carried an undercurrent that made Amelia's stomach clench with fear. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the Montana sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, Amelia slipped away from the house to her favorite spot by the creek. The wedding was now barely 48 hours away, and she felt like she was suffocating under the weight of her impending fate. I thought I might find you here. Amelia whirled around to find her father standing a few paces away, his weathered face uncharacteristically soft in the fading light. Papa, she acknowledged, turning back to watch the water flow over the rocks. James Baker moved to stand beside his daughter. At 58, years of hard work and worry had carved deep lines into his face. Your mother says you've been distant, preoccupied. I'm getting married in 2 days, Papa, to a man I barely know. Her father sighed heavily. I know this isn't what you wanted, Amelia. But sometimes in life, we have to make hard choices for the greater good. The greater good. Amelia couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. You mean your debts? Not just my debts, he corrected gently. The future of this ranch. The livelihoods of everyone who works for us. The legacy that will be yours someday. He paused. Thompson can save all of that. At the cost of my happiness. Her father was quiet for a long moment. I saw him, you know. Kane, riding the ridge yesterday. Amelia's heart skipped a beat. Samuel? He came to me about a month ago. Her father continued, surprising her. Asked for your hand properly. Showed me the deed to his land. Hope flared briefly in Amelia's chest. What did you tell him? I told him the truth. That it was too late. That my word was given to Thompson, and a man is only as good as his word. He looked at her directly, and that his little spread, impressive as it might be for a young man starting out, couldn't save what's taken 3 generations to build. The hope died as quickly as it had come. So you sent him away. I did what I had to do, Amelia. He reached out and touched the ruby pendant at her throat. Thompson can give you security, a position in society. What can Kane offer you but struggle and hardship? Love, she said simply. He can offer me love. Her father's expression softened further. Love is a luxury, my dear. One that fades when bellies are empty and winters are cold. Is that what happened with you and Mama? Amelia asked. The question seemed to catch him off guard. Your mother and I, we've had a good life together. But did you love her when you married her? Do you love her now? He looked away, back toward the house where lanterns were being lit against the gathering darkness. We've built something that matters. Something that will outlast both of us. He squeezed her shoulder. That's its own kind of love, Amelia. With that, he turned and walked back toward the house, leaving Amelia alone with her thoughts and the rushing water. The day before the wedding dawned clear and bright. The ranch was transformed, with white tents erected in the meadow and long tables set up for the feast that would follow the ceremony. The local preacher had arrived from town and was staying in the guest room, practicing his sermon for what was being called the social event of the year. Amelia sat at her dressing table, staring at her reflection without really seeing it. Her mother had laid out her dress for the rehearsal dinner that evening, a pale blue gown that had been her grandmother's. Next to it lay the ruby pendant that Thompson insisted she wear. A knock at her door drew her attention. "Come in," she called, expecting her mother with more wedding details. Instead, it was Beth, the young woman who helped in the kitchen. She slipped inside and closed the door quickly behind her. "Miss Amelia," she whispered, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "I have something for you." She pressed a folded piece of paper into Amelia's hand. "From Mr. Kane. He asked me to make sure you got it." Amelia's fingers closed around the note. "Thank you, Beth." The girl nodded, her eyes wide. "Be careful. Mississippi Mr. Thompson's men are everywhere." With that warning, she slipped back out of the room. Hands trembling, Amelia unfolded the paper. The message was brief. "Tomorrow. Trust me. We're something that makes you happy." She pressed the note to her heart, uncertain what Samuel was planning but clinging to the hope that somehow he would save her from this marriage. The rehearsal dinner that evening was an elaborate affair. Thompson had insisted on bringing in his own chef from his estate, and the meal was lavish, with course after course of rich foods that Amelia could barely touch. She sat between her father and her soon-to-be husband, feeling like a prisoner at her own execution feast. "You've barely eaten," Thompson observed, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "I don't like waste, Amelia. In my household, you'll learn to appreciate what's provided for you." She forced herself to take a bite of the roast beef on her plate. "It's delicious. I'm just excited for tomorrow." His laugh was cold. "Excited? Yes, I suppose that's one word for it." His hand found her knee under the table, squeezing hard enough to make her wince. "I'm looking forward to tomorrow night myself." Amelia felt ill. She excused herself as soon as it was socially acceptable, claiming a need to rest before the big day. In the sanctuary of her room, she finally let the tears come, silent sobs that shook her body as she curled up on her bed. Whatever Samuel was planning, she prayed it would work, because the alternative was too terrible to contemplate. Morning came all too quickly. The ranch was alive with activity before dawn, with servants and hired help rushing to complete the final preparations for the ceremony set to take place at noon. Amelia was awoken by her mother and two cousins who had traveled from Denver for the wedding. They hustled her through breakfast and then began the arduous process of preparing her for the ceremony. "You look pale," her mother fretted, pinching Amelia's cheeks to bring color to them. "Gerald will think we've been starving you." "I'm fine, Mother," Amelia replied mechanically, staring at her reflection as her hair was arranged in an elaborate style topped with a veil of Belgian lace, another gift from Thompson. As the women worked, Amelia's mind raced. What was Samuel planning? How could he possibly stop a wedding with half the territory in attendance, including the sheriff and several prominent judges? And what had he meant about wearing something that made her happy? Her gaze fell on the jewelry box on her dressing table. Pushing aside her mother's protests, she rose and opened it, withdrawing a simple silver chain with a small pendant, a star-shaped wildflower preserved in resin. "What are you doing?" her mother demanded. "Gerald expects you to wear the ruby he gave you." Amelia unclasped the heavy red stone from her neck and replaced it with the wildflower pendant. "This was grandmother's. It's my something old." Her mother looked like she wanted to argue, but was interrupted by a knock at the door. "That will be your father." "It's time, Amelia." Amelia's heart thundered in her chest as she was guided downstairs and out to the waiting carriage. Though the ceremony was taking place on their property, tradition dictated that the bride should arrive by carriage to the specially constructed altar in the meadow. Her father helped her into the vehicle, his face solemn. "You look beautiful, daughter," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, Papa." She searched his face, hoping for some last-minute reprieve, but found only resignation and a hint of sadness. The carriage began its short journey to the meadow, where nearly 200 guests were already seated in rows of white chairs. At the far end stood an arch of wildflowers and ribbons, beneath which waited Preacher Collins, and beside him, Gerald Thompson in a black suit that made him look like an undertaker. As the carriage pulled to a stop, Amelia felt a wave of panic. Where was Samuel? Had his plan failed? Her father helped her down and offered his arm. "Ready?" he asked. Before she could answer, the sound of galloping hooves drew everyone's attention. A cloud of dust appeared on the ridge above the meadow, and from it emerged a lone rider pushing his horse at breakneck speed toward the gathering. "What in tarnation?" her father muttered, shading his eyes against the sun. Amelia's heart leapt into her throat as she recognized the rider. "Samuel!" He thundered down the hill and across the meadow, sending guests scrambling out of his path. He pulled his horse to a dramatic halt just yards from where Amelia stood with her father. "What is the meaning of this?" Thompson bellowed, striding forward with his hand moving toward the gun he doubtless had concealed beneath his jacket. Samuel's eyes never left Amelia's face as he dismounted in one fluid movement. He was dressed not in his usual ranch clothes, but in a clean white shirt and dark vest, his best clothes, she realized. "I've come for my bride," Samuel announced, his voice carrying across the now silent gathering. Thompson's face turned purple with rage. "Your bride? This woman is promised to me, you insolent dog." Samuel smiled, a confident, dangerous smile that made Amelia's heart race. "That's where you're wrong, Thompson." He reached into his vest and withdrew a folded document. "Amelia Baker is already my wife." A collective gasp rose from the assembled guests. Amelia's father stepped forward, his expression thunderous. "What madness is this, Kane?" Samuel held out the paper. "Marriage certificate, signed and witnessed yesterday by Judge Franklin and Helena. Amelia and I were legally wed." "Impossible," Thompson sputtered. "She's been here, under guard." "Not all night," Samuel replied smoothly. "And not everyone who works for you is loyal, Thompson. Some remember how you treated your first wife before she mysteriously disappeared." A murmur ran through the crowd. Amelia's mother pushed forward. "This is absurd. Amelia never left the ranch." Samuel's eyes found Amelia's again. "Tell them, Amelia. Tell them about our midnight ride to Helena. Tell them about the judge who married us by lamplight, with his wife and son as witnesses." All eyes turned to Amelia. In that moment, she understood what Samuel was asking of her, to take a leap of faith, to trust him completely. She stepped forward, away from her father's side. "It's true," she said, her voice stronger than she expected. "Samuel and I were married last night. I am already his bride." Her father's face went white with shock. "Amelia, I'm sorry, Papa," she said, meaning it. "But I couldn't marry a man I don't love." Thompson's rage exploded. "You lying little." He lunged forward, reaching for Amelia, but Samuel was faster, stepping between them and knocking Thompson's hand away. "That's my wife you're reaching for," Samuel said, his voice dangerously low. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Thompson drew back his fist, but before he could swing, the sheriff stepped forward from among the guests. "That's enough, Gerald. Sheriff Davis, this man is lying. There's no way they could have, actually." A new voice interrupted, and the crowd parted to reveal Judge Franklin himself, dressed in his Sunday best. "I can confirm that I did indeed marry Samuel Kane and Amelia Baker last night at approximately 11 o'clock. He approached and took the certificate from Samuel's hand, examining it. "This is my signature, and this document is legal and binding." A hush fell over the gathering. Thompson looked like he might explode, his face contorted with fury. "This is some kind of trick. She was promised to me. A promise that became null and void the moment she said, 'I do' to another man." Judge Franklin replied calmly. "In the eyes of the law and God, Amelia Baker is now Amelia Kane." Thompson turned to Amelia's father. "You arranged this marriage, Baker. You gave me your word." James Baker looked from his daughter to Samuel, then to Thompson. His shoulders seemed to sag, but when he spoke, his voice was firm. "It seems my daughter has made her choice, Gerald. And legally, there's nothing either of us can do about it now." "You'll regret this," Thompson spat. "Both of you. I'll ruin you, Baker. I'll call in every debt you owe me." "That might be difficult," Samuel said, reaching once more into his vest to produce another document. "Since I've purchased those debts from the bank in Helena." Another shock rippled through the crowd. Amelia stared at Samuel in disbelief. "That's impossible," her father said. "Those debts amount to over $20,000. Samuel nodded. They do. Fortunately, my little spread turned out to sit on top of one of the richest silver deposits in the territory. The mining company paid me a substantial sum for the rights last month. He handed the paper to James Baker. Consider it a wedding gift, sir. James Baker took the document with trembling hands, reading it with growing astonishment. This is real. Every word, Samuel confirmed. Your ranch is free and clear, Mr. Baker. No one can take it from you now. Thompson looked from one face to another, realizing he had lost not only his bride, but his leverage over the Baker family. With a final curse, he stormed to his horse and rode away, several of his men following behind. For a moment, no one moved. Then Amelia broke the silence, rushing forward into Samuel's arms. He caught her, lifting her off her feet in an embrace that spoke of relief and triumph and love. How did you manage all this? She whispered against his neck. I told you to trust me, he replied softly. I've been planning this since the day your father told me I wasn't good enough for you. He set her down gently. Though I have to confess, we're not actually married yet. She pulled back, confused. But the certificate is real, but dated for today. His eyes danced with mischief. Judge Franklin was kind enough to prepare it in advance, on the condition that you freely consented to be my wife. He glanced at the judge, who nodded in confirmation. So we're not married? Amelia asked, trying to understand. Samuel dropped to one knee before her, taking her hand. Not yet, which means I get to do this properly. He looked up at her, his eyes full of love. Amelia Baker, will you marry me? Right here, right now, in front of God and these witnesses. Tears of joy filled Amelia's eyes. Yes, Samuel. Yes, I will marry you. A cheer went up from the crowd. Even some of Thompson's former supporters seemed moved by the romantic gesture. James Baker stepped forward, his expression a complex mixture of emotions. You went to extraordinary lengths for my daughter, Kane. I love her, sir, Samuel said simply, rising to his feet, but keeping Amelia's hand in his. I would have moved heaven and earth to make her my wife. The older man studied him for a long moment, then slowly extended his hand. Then I suppose I should welcome you to the family, son. Samuel took his hand, and something passed between the two men, an understanding, perhaps, or the beginning of respect. Preacher Collins cleared his throat. Well, it seems we still have a wedding to perform, if the bride and groom are ready. Amelia looked down at her elaborate wedding gown, then up at Samuel in his simple but dignified attire. I'm ready, she said, more ready than I've ever been for anything in my life. The ceremony that followed was nothing like the lavish affair that had been planned. Instead of standing beneath the flower arch, Amelia and Samuel exchanged their vows in the center of the meadow, with the Montana mountains as their backdrop and the summer sun blessing them from above. When Preacher Collins pronounced them husband and wife, Samuel pulled Amelia into a kiss that left no doubt in anyone's mind about the depth of his feelings for her. The guests, at least those who had chosen to stay after Thompson's departure, erupted in applause. The celebration that followed was simpler than the original plan, but somehow more joyous. Tables were rearranged, food was served, and music played as the new couple danced beneath the open sky. Are you happy, Mrs. Kane? Samuel asked as he twirled her around the makeshift dance floor. Amelia's smile was radiant. Happier than I ever thought possible. She touched the wildflower pendant at her throat, the one Samuel had given her last summer when they first fell in love. You remembered. I remember everything about you, he said softly, and I intend to spend the rest of my life learning even more. As the sun began to set, casting long golden shadows across the land, Amelia and Samuel slipped away from the celebration. They rode together on his horse to the ridge overlooking both the Baker Ranch and Samuel's land beyond. Our future, Samuel said, gesturing to the vista before them. Your family's legacy secured, and our own just beginning. Amelia leaned back against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. When did you discover the silver? About 2 months ago. I wanted to tell you right away, but I needed to be sure. To have everything in place before I challenged Thompson. You risked everything coming to the wedding like that, she said. What if I hadn't gone along with your story? He chuckled, the sound rumbling through his chest. Then I would have looked like the biggest fool in Montana territory. His arms tightened around her. But I knew you loved me. I had faith in that. even when everything else seemed impossible. She turned in the saddle to face him, her eyes shining with love and promise. "Take me home, Samuel. Take me to our home." With a smile that held all their tomorrows, he turned the horse toward the setting sun and their new life together, a life born from courage, sealed with love, and promised to last forever beneath the vast Montana sky.